What? Are we starting? Are we on? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. I might have missed a few spots or something there, I don't know, but what's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of, Hey, did you see this one? And as we continue our John Carpenter's Presents January in honor of his birthdays this month, so we're doing a bunch of his movies. This week, Prince of Darkness, and I believe my co-hosts are trying to come in as we speak. Let's bring them on in. Break it on down. There he is. All right.
Hi, it's me, Jason, from the hit television program.
Hi.
Hey, did you see this one?
A very cool
I see you're
priest.
dressed as a cool priest.
This is toilet paper.
Did you use toilet? I was gonna say, did you use toilet paper to become a priest?
How
Because
dare.
that might be blasphemy, my guy.
Where's our other co-host? Do I have to invite him?
He's in the chat. Request to join
You
my
know what? It looks like he already
mon frere.
passed, and I just overlooked it. Steve. He's coming. He's coming.
He's always
I
coming.
can't stop.
This is not a dream. Not a dream. We are using your brain's electrical system as a receiver. We are unable to transmit through conscious neural interfaces. You are receiving this broadcast as a dream. We are transmitting from the year 1999.
No, keep going.
Hello.
Keep going.
Hi, I'm from the future. I think that's what the transmission
That is
says
correct.
with
I
the
had to
dreams
watch it a few
happening, right?
times. Like I make it.
Yes. Well, you know, the reason that you're receiving this broadcast is in order to alter the events you're seeing. Our technology has not developed a transmitter strong enough to reach your conscious state of awareness. But this is not a dream. You are seeing what is actually occurring for the purpose of causality violation.
Hey, I hate causality violation. It's my
Sounds like
least favorite kind of violation.
I think
Of all
there's
the
a couple
different kinds,
other ones that I don't like more, but I don't like it either.
It sounds like an episode.
hello. This kind of fits in the Loki-verse, the multiverse of madness, the John Carpenter multiverse of madness.
No, that would have been a good title for our January.
I have a theory corner coming up later.
I have a theory.
I have to fully form it, but it has to do with
I think.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, viewers. We're here to talk about Prince of Darkness, and we'll probably talk about that transmission message a little bit more as we go. But to start things off, as we usually do, I'm going to get the ball rolling with my introduction to this movie, and because it's short and sweet, this was it. My introduction to the movie. This is my first time seeing it, my first time hearing of it. Again, like this is kind of part of, my hopes of doing this with you guys is getting introduced to other movies. So super psyched about that. I enjoyed the movie for what it was. John Carpenter definitely has style, down pat, and he's a man of many talents. Congrats to him. I will say this much, and I'll
Well, I just got a text. It says, John Carpenter accepts your congratulations.
Nice.
Welcome to the first annual John Carpenter Awards, where we congratulate him on his many achievements, including music, video, film, television, other things he's done.
Yeah.
Where he does like
Being
a
a
little
weirdo.
cameo.
I don't think he has cameoed in any of his own movies, but he did do briefly an anthology television series where he was the host,
Yeah.
sort of like a Crypt Keeper style, where he had like weird makeup on and he was like dissecting bodies, and he's like, in this next story, you're gonna see something real freaky that happened to a friend of mine.
And that moment in They Live that I mentioned when we did that, where he's mentioned by name. He's a director in the universe of They Live.
Yeah,
so
he's also a director in the universe.
I can't wait for
next
week.
It's
going to be brand new to me.
Which I love. This movie also has a weird thing where Walter suddenly is like, "You guys like movies?" And I'm like, "That's John Carpenter." That probably wasn't written in the script. Is John Carpenter being like, "I got to make this I got to have a meta moment, a John Carpenter meta moment." This week's John Carpenter meta moment has been brought to you by Obey.
Walter was definitely my favorite.
Consume.
And on that note, Jace, let's move to you next with your first contact with this movie.
I think I saw this. I've never seen this movie. This is the first time I've seen this movie. But I do vividly remember the cover to this movie in the movie store I went to as a kid. And I do vividly remember turning it over. And I'm pretty sure on the back where they have like the picture, like three out of context pictures from the movie, it's just Susan's face going like this. And the woman turning into like the, Exorcist, the ghoul lady, the what's her name from The Exorcist? I fucking wrote it down.
Blair?
Linda Blair. And I think that made me go, nope. And then watching it now, I was like, this is like, it's not really a horror movie. It's like a suspense thriller hybrid horror thing. But that's basically it. Like, I do remember, I've seen the cover of this movie many times. I didn't know it was a John Carpenter movie. Actually, a lot of, like, Big Trouble in Little China and this and the movie we're doing next week, I've heard of all of them, obviously. Didn't know they were John Carpenter movies. Which blows my mind. I've always known John Carpenter for They Live and The Thing. If we had an extra week, I know we've talked about how we don't want to do The Thing because it's been talked to death. I would like to talk about that movie, so maybe later this year we do it anyway.
Man, I would just continue and scrap all of our plans for the next 4 months and just keep talking about John Carpenter movies forever because they're great.
We're just a John Carpenter podcast now. Let's do 2022 John Carpenter year. Every week we have a John Carpenter award segment. Yeah. So,
or, if we keep going on with this forever, maybe John Carpenter presents all of our Januaries until we stop.
That'd be cool. Or like later in the year, we just do John Carpenter's back, baby.
Right.
He's presenting February now.
I mean, I am doing, for my month, I am doing Stephen King adaptations, and he has done, I think, at least one. He did Christine, I'm pretty sure. So I could switch one of mine out. But maybe I don't want to do that, though, because I picked some specific movies I want to talk about with you guys. So I guess that leaves me for my first introduction to this movie, and my first introduction is I Can't Remember, and I watched this, I believe, in high school, but it was like one of those things that I thought was kind of boring when I was younger, and I was like, this isn't really scary, and it's not really intriguing to me, and it all seems very like, oh, religion is spooky, so is science. But rewatching this movie, I was kind of like, this movie sort of is awesome. Like, I kind of love everything that's happening. So my first introduction to this movie, I can't even really recall how old I was, but I remember being like, it just didn't stick into my memory, which is one of the reasons that I suggested it, because I was like, I know I've seen this, but I can't really remember what happens in it. And I'm glad we did pick it, because I'm very familiar with a lot of other John Carpenter's movies, but this one I probably never would have went back to had we not decided to do it for this. So I'm glad we did,
we
because
did
it's fun.
Was so, and I think I'm gonna this metaphor in a slow cooker versus like fast food McDonald's. If that makes any sense to you guys.
Right. I think Big Trouble in Little China is fast food something, but it's like fast food that's amazing and doesn't make you feel shit afterwards.
Wendy's.
Fast food.
Yeah, it's like a Wendy's.
Like A&W, if it's like, if you got somebody preparing it properly. Some A&W, hit or miss.
Yeah.
It's the best fast food, but
Carpenter is hit or miss.
Yeah.
Just like A&W.
A-dub. The I was thinking about, I mean, you guys expressed maybe not doing it this way with the last two, but I was thinking, like, so I kind of like made a timeline of like scene by scene and then little like notes along the way. How does that tickle your guys' fancy?
You're the host, buddy. I don't have a lot to say about this film until we get to the rating segment. So if you want to do it that way.
I actually did a little bit of poking around because I was interested in some of the specifics of this movie, because there were things in this that I was like, what? Alice Cooper's in this?
Alice Cooper's the white-faced homeless guy at the beginning. It's awesome.
So I did a little bit of research on trying to figure out some of those weird things, because it seems very odd, right, that Alice Cooper is in this movie as somebody that apparently has no lines and just is skulking around like a creepy zombie man.
Or something, knew John Carpenter,
so I do have some stuff to talk about.
And he was like asking about getting...
I know the story. If you want me to tell it, now I can.
Let's tell it as we go. So let me do a play-by-play of what's going on in this movie. A quick little summary is there's something brewing in the basement of a church, and this professor makes his students go investigate it, basically, and sends them to their doom.
It sends half of them to their doom. I got a Ghostbusters vibe off of that this whole thing. It kind of has a Ghostbuster. Here, let me hit you. Let me hit you with my theory corner. It's not really a theory corner so much as it's something I noticed in a post Ghostbusters world. This movie almost was written like they wanted to take that paranormal with religious undertones idea and expand on it, and instead of just having like, a scientist of a cult, and Egon, who's like just a general, scientist, like almost a therapist kind of a scientist, they go right into the physics of it, and then you have almost like the Doom franchise, where it's science meets hell. If I got a big vibe off of that whole notion. It reminded me a lot of the opening to the video game Doom 3, where you're not just Doom guy going and blasting. So anyway, I started blasting. You're actually on this like space station, and they're like digging on Mars, and the space Marines have to go there because something has been unearthed. And I got the same kind of idea here, where like this priest has his final wishes or his final thoughts in a little thing. They find it, and then they go, like, that basement place was hidden for a millennia, it seemed like.
I think it was inferred that they moved it to the United States in order to keep it away from people that knew more about it. So they moved it to like the United States in order to keep it secret. Because the United States, when it got moved over, was like far less developed, and the people that lived there didn't know anything about it, and they were just kind of like overcome with religious dogma. I think Donald Pleasence talks about it briefly, where he's like, we were basically salesmen as priests, and we're convincing man that they are far more important than they actually are, by saying that, like, you have the devil inside of you, when really the devil exists inside of a literal tank of ooze that we have captured and contained, and as long as we keep it contained, humanity is safe. But in order to keep humanity from digging around looking for it, we need to convince humanity that they have
Already.
the devil inside of them, so that they have to like defeat it themselves internally rather than go looking for the actual devil and destroying it. Because in doing so, they would release it or whatever.
And just to finish my thought about my link to Ghostbusters here, this almost feels like a more realistic depiction of Ghostbusters 2 without all the hokiness and all the like. And there had to be a sequel. Like if the Ghostbusters just showed up in this movie, this would be an awesome Ghostbusters 3. You know what I mean? It would still be like there's no comedy really in this movie besides Walter being the comic relief. He's the comic relief in a serious movie, in a drama. You know, like that's
yeah. There's
movies typically
there's not much levity happening in this movie.
No, it's basically just him being a fucking idiot, and I felt a real weird disconnect from his role and the rest of them acting very serious, and him being like, I usually like being dominated by two women.
Got a bunch of good quips.
Anyway,
so I think that one thing that, Jason, you're starting to realize after watching a few of these John Carpenter movies is that John Carpenter would have made an amazing director to make a Ghostbusters movie.
Holy shit! If we had the energy of Big Trouble with the science of Prince of Darkness, Ghostbusters 3, where the original script where they go to hell, the original Ghostbusters 3 script that was rumored, that movie would have been, if that was a John Carpenter movie. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
I want it.
I think that this movie, like a lot of John Carpenter movies, they end ambiguously, or they end with like a jump or a thing, like you're not sure what's going to happen next, which is like his intention, right? He wants you to leave. I mean, it doesn't really make you think so much as it makes you want more, to be like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if we get to see what happened after that? Where this one in particular, I would like to see a sequel to. Like, I want to see that woman trapped, like, sort of like Hellraiser too, you know? Like, they go into the Hellverse and, like, they have to deal with the demons on their own turf. Like, I would like to see that. I'm not saying they should do it.
You'd buy a ticket.
I'm just saying I would like to see it. I would like to see that boyfriend finding a way into the mirror universe to like get his girlfriend back.
Here's your monkey's paw, though, Steve. John Carpenter dies. Somebody gets the rights to all of his movies. Yeah. And we get sequels to fucking all of them, and they're all bad.
You should have put down your ring finger and just gave the finger. You were setting it up so perfectly. Yeah. No, I know. Again, I'm not saying they should make one. I'm saying that out of all of the movies that end ambiguously, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, Halloween, which they did eventually make sequels to, this is one that I'm like, I kind of would have liked to have seen what happened afterwards. Like imagine like Victor Wong's character and Donald Pleasence's character being like, but have we defeated evil for real? And then Brian shows up and he's like, I think I found a way using quantum physics to get into the mirror dimension. And then he has to like go into the mirror dimension and get what's her name back, and she's become like the queen of the fucking demons or some shit.
I was daydreaming about that too. I was like, she obviously just goes and becomes Satan's bride like immediately, right?
That's what I kind of saw happening there too. But anyway, I mean, it wasn't an interpretation so much as I'm like, what would the devil do if this woman thwarted his plans? Because it's not even the devil; it's the devil's father, which is like even kind of scary.
Well,
you're like, whoa, Satan has a dad.
Satan.
I did get confused about that at one point.
Okay,
they were talking about the devil or son of the devil or whatever.
The idea of this movie is that you're not supposed to take the interpretation of religion as we know it as human beings to be gospel, literally, which is what it is on Earth. It's that these interdimensional beasts exist, and they, given the chance, will come forward and come into our universe. So, like, your idea of religion is not real. It's like, yeah, the devil's real, we have it in a tank, but the devil's dad is even worse than the devil, and his whole purpose is to crack himself out of that tube to make sure that his dad can come into our universe. It's like they've melded aliens and interdimensional travelers and demons and religion and science all into one thing, asking you as the audience to like forget about what you know about
They didn't
religion and science. Let's just have a good time with these teenagers. Well, I mean, they're asking you by inviting you into the theater to be like, just keep an open mind and don't crack open your Bible halfway through and be like, but what about in Leviticus 4:26?
If you see John Carpenter Presents, that's
I
asking you to
did
keep
like
an
how
open mind right there.
he blended
Every time.
different genres, so like you're saying, with religion and then with science, with like a bit of a horror undertone or whatever, right? Like demons or whatever. I like the part where they mention about Jesus being an extraterrestrial, coming to like save us or whatever, like a human type figure though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's sort of like the Ridley Scott interpretation of like the engineers being religious figures and aliens, right? Like I remember going to see that movie with a friend, and he's like, well, what about like Adam and Eve? I'm like, well, this movie is telling you that Adam and Eve is a bunch of bullshit. So you shouldn't be asking about what about Adam and Eve. You should be like, holy shit, we were created by a race of aliens who were just fucking around with primordial ooze. Yeah. Yeah. I love all of that. Like when you kind of boil down what the elements of this movie are, the opening scene is a priest dying.
He's got a box. He's
like,
holding on to a box.
out.
Like, ooh, that's got to be important.
Oh, I'm the last person to be holding this stuff back. And then Donald Pleasence is introduced, and he's like, oh, fuck, like this is it. And what does he do? He doesn't contact like the Vatican. He contacts his old scientist buddy to be like, we need to figure out how to defeat this with science.
We need the grandfather from Three Ninjas.
No, we need Egg Shen from Big Trouble in Little China. Bring your lightning hands, please. Yeah, I think that those two characters, Donald Pleasence and Victor Wong, are the most compelling characters throughout the movie. Like, there's other, funny character tropes and interesting character development, but not really that much where you're like, I want to see more from this character. Like, I think that I was most into the movie when it was those two sitting in a room talking about religion and science, like at the same time. Like they're just like ping-ponging back and forth and like coming to a realization that it's like, we're both pretty much idiots when it comes to this, but we need to do everything that we can to try to stop this from
It did feel like they tried. Sorry, go ahead.
That's even conveyed when he's talking to his students, and he's like, "You're the best we got. None of you have your masters, but you're the closest thing to knowing anything about this. So we're gonna set you all up in this nightmare church."
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, I wish that he would tell them just so that they would know, but at the same time, I'm glad he's not, because I wouldn't have gone. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna go mess around in a church basement with a bunch of ooze in it.
Well, there's that foreshadowing where the two guys, just sorry, one second, Caleb, where those two guys are like, we're leaving. This is crazy. And Roger, right before he gets fucking turned into Beelzebub, the Lord of the Bugs, he's like, it's whatever, it's a bunch of bullshit anyway. And they walk away, and then he gets fucking stabbed in the neck, and he turns into Beetles. So that's that foreshadowing.
Turns into Beetlejuice.
Diesel Boss is a real religious figure.
Oh, yeah. It's one of the names of the devil, yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, he gets killed by half a scissor. That's so brutal feeling to me. Like, he doesn't even get killed by like a full pair of scissors. Like half.
What about getting killed by half a bike?
Oh yeah. Oh, that plays into my. Yes, that is a thing from Alice Cooper's stage performance. Not only did they implement it in the movie, but it's like the literal device that they had left over. This is John Carpenter squeezing $1 into $3. He's like, I can take $1 and make it look like $3 by inviting my good friend Alice Cooper to be in my movie, and Alice Cooper will bring along his weird impalement devices for his stage show.
I've seen Alice Cooper live, and he has all kinds of weird. He gets beheaded during it. It looks very realistic. I don't remember the bike thing. Maybe he doesn't. Okay. Because all of his songs are like horror songs. They're all about
horror, man. He's
a horror singer.
He
Can I
loves horror.
say this though, right quick?
I mean,
I don't
I guess
feel
now that we're
Brian and
talking-
Catherine's
Yes.
whatever was earned, relationship, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know. Or maybe that.
I don't know. He asked her out to coffee, and then they bang.
Yeah, he was also a
Did the
creep.
last-
He was
kinda
stalking her.
Yeah.
Stalking her.
She's like, why are you here? It's like a library.
Guy, like,
He just says library.
And then he notices her. She's leaving school with like another guy or something like that. Excuse me. And then you're like,
Yeah, well, okay, so, yeah, no, I agree with you, Kalen. I'm not saying that I disagree. I definitely agree. I don't think that this movie had enough time to sort of, like, fuck around with a man pursuing a woman. And to me, it came off as weird and creepy, and then it's immediately stomped out. Like, I thought that he was going to be a weird villain when I started watching it. I was like, what? Because John Carpenter has a very sort of, like, particular way of shooting, especially in this era. It does evolve. In the next movie, you'll see, like, it's... The Mouth of Madness, I think, is shot so well. Like, it's very corny the way it's filmed, but
Perfect.
I really, really like all of it. But this movie, it's similar to Halloween, where everything is, like... He's got these long, dramatic, long shots, and everything is ominous. And even him coming out and watching her for a moment, the first time he sees her, it's clearly a look of recognition, but you don't know really what it means, other than I think they're supposed to be in the same class. And then he sees her with the guy, he gets disappointed and leaves, and then eventually he has an introduction with her. But I'm already weirded out by it's just these weird longing stares where she's not even aware that he exists. And instead of it being like, oh man, I hope that he pursues her and gets her, it's like, what the fuck is this guy about? Is he gonna kill her? What's going on? But
he's like, look at my one card trick I can do.
He just flipped it around with his finger.
He did it late in the movie. He just made it disappear. Like he was just doing the sleight of hand where you make it disappear behind your hand.
Listen, when you go to university, there's a lot of weirdos who try and like learn something weird to pick up chicks, and it seems like that's the thing he was trying to learn how to do. It's like, it's not impressive enough that you're a quantum physicist. You have to learn a stupid close-up magic trick.
Also, I can play Don't Look Back in Anger on the acoustic guitar.
That one for a girl.
Yeah.
I can play.
No.
Did she bang you?
She never found out about it.
I'm just funny. That's what I do.
I don't even know if I'm funny. That
answers your question right there, buddy.
Oh, dang.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, but again, they stomp that out, and the two of them hook up. And again, I'm like, there's something wrong here, but then they don't really pursue the wrongness anymore. And I really do attribute it to just the film style, like the cinematography of all of those moments that made me feel uneasy. But the movie is meant to make you feel uneasy the entire time leading up until they enter the church. I
interpreted it as like they hooked up and they were the last. They hooked up with each other last, and they just happened to cling, like hug and be lovey-dovey because they had just hooked up. Like if this was a week later, and like you said, if there's more time to like expound on what the relationship was, then maybe we would have more drama.
And they are dropped into a horrifying situation immediately afterwards. So she is obviously going to gravitate to him, and he to her, because of the circumstance.
Yeah,
and I think that's all it was. It's like, we got to set up a reason for these two to be, like, we could have it so that they're already dating, but we have to make them seem like they're independent and intelligent, and that they can make these decisions
he pissed her off,
independently of one another, while also
over
feeling an obligation for each other.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I can't be a physicist because I'm a pretty lady. And then he's like, you get real romantic when it comes to science, but when it's interpersonal relationship, you go cold.
And then he saves
I was like, bro.
Why do you? That's like the wise guy, the smart guy way of saying you should smile more.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it was cringy, and I think the idea is that he's supposed to not be great with women, and she's supposed to be damaged in some way via a previous relationship that I don't think are made aware of at any point in the movie. It's just character development without having to show it or tell it. It's just like we gotta have. It's an ensemble cast. There's like 13 characters in this movie. They don't have time.
If this movie was made now, it would be 20 minutes longer, and it would be brought down by their dumb first act relationship explanation.
If this movie was made now, it would be a 8-part miniseries on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Kalen, I think Kalen has done 1 point of his roadmap.
It's not perfect. we do it on the fly. We adapt. We roll with it. I will say this. So we don't have my favorite movie title shout out. We don't have an official movie title shout out, but we have what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, exactly.
They show it on the screen at 32 minutes, 33 seconds.
Exactly.
It says Prince of Darkness on the screen.
That's the word I'm looking for. It does. It comes up here. So, congrats to that.
It's better than me pointing out They Live, because the title of the movie was in spray paint and that was the movie title. But this actually is like some text on a computer screen that says Prince of Darkness.
I mean, yours was still
I think
valid.
This is a better.
Yours was absolutely valid.
Roddy Piper should have been like, "They live!" at some point in the movie.
Lives? Wait a minute.
But no, yeah. So we're on our little timeline thing. Staring gazes. Their professor forces them on a field trip. Fucking Walter. Fucking, what's he say again? Got serious plans this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got to pick up his bride from LAX. She's got green eyes.
She's got dragon jade green eyes. My favorite Walter line in the whole movie is, I hate to tell you guys, this is real bullshit.
Yeah. He has got the zingers, man. I commend John Carpenter for finding actors and always giving them roles. Like he seems to find people that he really enjoys working with and can see in specific roles, and doesn't, because he's so limited with his budget and the studio does not come in and interfere with who they're going to. He's like, I can make this for $20 million. They're like, okay, you can have whoever you want. He's like, well, I'm going to get all the people that I like from the last project that I worked on and make sure that they feel correct in the roles. And they always do. I don't feel like I ever watch a John Carpenter movie and feel like somebody is out of place with the dialogue.
But then pay them way more money than they'd make in any other movie. I can only imagine.
Yeah, for what they're yeah, exactly. Like, they're going to be making a good amount of money for the movie that they're in, but they're also not going to be making, crazy amounts of money. And they're just, it just feels like he creates these sort of like little communities within his movies and enjoys working with people. So he's like, I'm going to provide my friends that I like with work and make sure that they work within the movies accordingly. And then he's got people that like skyrocket out of his movies who will still come back and do something with him once in a while. It would be there's one thing that is so disappointing, and it's that John Carpenter has been retired for so long in terms of directing. And it would be so nice if, Kurt Russell didn't cost $20 million to be in a movie nowadays, because it's not even like Kurt Russell can be like,
well, can he? Couldn't he do that? Can't people?
It's like they're not. A lot of actors are under contract within studio systems, where they cannot work under their pay grade.
Sometimes they'll pay their own. Sometimes actors will pay their own studio cost to be in smaller movies. Yeah. But I think even Kurt Russell is just like, I'm too old for the indie flick. Even if it is John Carpenter coming out of retirement. But Old Man Snake would be cool.
Yes, I would like to see that. Or So many things. Or like an old Jack Burton, man. I would love an old Jack Burton.
Dude, return to the trouble of Little China would be amazing.
So I have this like weird here. I know you have your theory corner, Jason, but here's my theory corner, or not my theory corner, but my wish corner. You know those the Santa Claus Chronicles that have been coming out
with
on
Kurt?
Netflix the last few years? Kurt Russell. What am I saying?
Yeah, there's two of them.
Yeah. So Kurt Russell plays Santa Claus, and I like to imagine. I've never seen it, but I like to imagine there is a scene at the very beginning of that movie where Jack Burton is like an old man and he's driving down the road and he's like, you know what old Jack Burton tells them? The check is in the and he hits something and he's like, what the hell? And
There's Santa Claus.
There's like dead reindeer and shit everywhere. And then he goes out and you just see Tim Allen and Tim Allen's like, oh no. And he disappears and then Kurt Russell, Jack Burton puts on the robes of Santa Claus and becomes the Santa Claus, and that's how the Santa Claus Chronicles starts. It's just a mesh of the two movies combined. And then you just have like he's having to like in the off season when he's not defeating Christmas as a concept, delivering all the presents, he's having to defeat like weird monsters and shit.
Yeah.
Santa Claus is like fighting monsters.
He's going to like Little Italy and fighting Italian stereotypes and going to like
Big Santa, Little Italy.
I want to watch that movie, Big Santa.
It's a gabagool monster. Bagabagaboo.
Yeah, what's it coming to go? Hey.
This movie.
Shut
up
my God.
I think that we should put our money together and try to get the Big Trouble Little China IP and just do Jack Burton goes to just little countries in different cities around the States and Canada.
Well, we got to talk to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson because he owns the rights
to
Big Trouble in Little China.
Right, we talked about that last week.
But wouldn't that be such a better concept if just like Tim Allen, Kurt Russell accidentally killed Santa Claus as Jack Burton?
Passing of the baton.
But it's like a shared multiverse now.
Yeah. Well, it's like I remember seeing the trailer, and there's a moment where he like looks over to Santa Claus billboard, and it's like a big fat Santa Claus, and it's Kurt Russell, and he's looking slick in his Santa robes, and he's like, "The billboard adds 50 pounds." And I'm like, that sounds like a Jack Burton line coming out of Santa Claus's mouth. Anyway.
I got a question. So they start gathering. Church. Yes. Something's going on. We see the sun and the moon starting to line up. They start gathering at the church. There's the homeless lady who greets the priest or whatever. It's like, oh, thank you for opening the church or whatever. Was that human shit in her cup?
Oh.
I think it was supposed to be just like rotting stuff.
Yeah, it was like maggots and like a piece of meat. Looked like a piece of meat.
I was definitely eating while I saw that part, and I was like,
yeah.
Oh. I was away for a minute. I was like, I can't eat this right now. Hold on.
I was like, I'm going to put this movie on while I eat this afternoon at lunchtime. And I was like, most of this I can't handle looking at while.
It's kind of gross, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
fine when you're not eating. Like, it's not that gross when you're like, even her melting skin bits where like that was like that's just really good fucking makeup. Yeah. But then if you're eating, of course it.
But when you add real bugs, it just like heightens the real, like, because they had to have used something nasty to get those bugs to like wriggle around and stuff. But
how many bugs died in the scene where Roger turns into a bug monster?
Yeah,
because they were like dancing around on the bugs, and they were like you see them moving and also getting squished.
Yeah, there was like I'm not sure if you can still kill bugs because the same way you could in the 80s and 90s, but I don't know if PETA, but it probably would be a PETA thing. But like there were like even up until the mid 90s, you could just like stomp on bugs on screen. Remember we watched Jason and they cut the head off that snake? Yeah,
it was a real snake. And also a lot of those movies that we had as kids that were like animals traveling across the states.
No,
Milo and Otis was actually done by like a Japanese film company, and like 100 animals died. But even the ones that weren't, I think there was a couple. I think there was a couple old yellers. I think there was a couple pugs from Homeward Bound. I think the rules with the animals in movies.
There's no
there's
pug
only one
in
air.
Homeward Bound.
Whatever the dog, not the pug. I don't care.
Golden Retriever.
Yeah.
The boxer. No, it's a boxer.
The pit bull is like a subbreed of like many dogs. Anyway, yes, bugs squishing. You're allowed to squish bugs. I don't know if you're still allowed to squish bugs, but even in like Starship Troopers, they were stomping on cockroaches on screen, and people were
What
like,
about
Paul
Men in
Verhoeven
Black?
was like,
Men in
harder!
Black when he stomps
Squish
on the
them
cockroach.
harder!
That's actually a good question. I'd like to know. But fuck a cockroach. Like, I think even PETA is like, fuck cockroaches.
Yeah, you put two in a box, and like a week later, there's 100,000.
I thought I'd like to do it.
Like, oh.
Yeah. And they can survive a nuclear holocaust. So
they will outlive humanity.
They can't survive a little step.
Well, since we're on the point of the weird mass of homeless people who they continuously call schizophrenics, which I'm like, insensitive. What if they're just
I think they were trying to say something there where like schizophrenia is actually sort of an offshoot of this horrible religion, Satan coming through the multiverse.
Yeah, they were also trying to say that like people's minds are, when they're awoken to something, it like makes them more susceptible to the laser beam focus of them like surrounding the church. And it's like, okay, but I think that Alice Cooper is literally named like Schizo Guy, something that wouldn't fly in our day and age now. But Alice Cooper, when he was first introduced in the movie, and he comes out and he's like wearing this like ghostly white face paint, I was like, who is this Alice Cooper looking motherfucker? I was like,
this is actually Alice Cooper.
Alice Cooper. Okay, never mind.
I saw his name in the credits, and I was like, how was he in this movie? And then I didn't even realize that the picture that we posted on the hey, did you see this one Instagram, with the one that Caleb posted that just says because that's what he does basically. That's Alice Cooper, and I didn't even recognize him because this is 1987, and Alice Cooper has looked. He looked the same from the 60s until the early 90s, and then in the 90s his face just melted.
Yeah. now he looks like an old lady.
Fun fact about him is he has been like straight edge like his whole career, and he's literally worked with everybody in the industry, and that's why he has so much longevity, because he's just been performing for 50 years. Frank Zappa discovered him in the 60s, and there's a fun story about that where he discovers them, and then he's like, here's my card, come on over, we'll record your first album. But what happens is they show up thinking they're just going to have like breakfast with Frank Zappa, and Frank Zappa's like, just go to my garage and record an album. And they're like, wait, what? And then they record this album, and then Frank Zappa's like, that's good, ship it. And their first album was just recorded like right then and there. And that's my musical corner. If we have movies with
no more
musicians,
corners. You can only have 4 corners.
There's 4 corners in a room. Unless it's circle. Here, I'll bring it back to the movie. The devil can't hide in a circle room, so that's why some churches are circle rooms.
Ah, okay. Well, how about now
can I segue into that story with one quick little quip? So when Alice Cooper's character kills that guy who's listening to the headphones, he's listening to Prince of Darkness by Alice Cooper.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I could hear it faintly. I'm very familiar with Alice Cooper. I was like, I recognize that song. And I was like, they did. John Carpenter was like, absolutely, he's going to be listening to Alice Cooper while he gets murdered. Perfect.
Steve, how did it?
By half a bike from his stage show.
You guys think that that Alice Cooper, that eventually Steve Carell is going to look like Alice Cooper, like when he melts enough?
You sent me that people, celebrities in the same font.
Yeah.
That TikTok. It's funny. I had that TikTok liked. I had seen it earlier. It was liked already when you sent it to me.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll never send you a TikTok again, you hipster fuck. So
that came from real malice.
That was a real. Well, I saw it before you sent it to me. Moment. It's like, okay.
No, but I can't like it twice. I'm just telling you I liked it in
I'm
real
kidding. I'm
in
just
real life.
joking around. Yeah, that's why I brought it up because I sent you that TikTok. I look forward to seeing more of those because they're interesting. The Joseph Gordon-Levitt Heath Ledger one is like, holy shit! I didn't realize how much they look alike.
Ago. What is this thing you're talking about?
It's just a TikTok where people compare celebrities that look alike.
Yeah, the joke is that they're done in the same font. They look so similar that it's like they're done in the same font. It's dumb. It's TikTok nonsense, but it's I don't know. I laughed.
It's interesting to look at. So Alice Cooper and John Carpenter met at WrestleMania 3.
Hey, do you want to know more things about wrestling?
I'm sure that people do, but how about we get through this first?
Okay.
I knew you would like this, Jason, because it's all about wrestling.
I knew Alice Cooper was at WrestleMania 3, so perfect.
So was John Carpenter, and they both obviously had backstage passes because they were celebrities, and they met backstage, and they ended up hanging out quite a bit. I believe Alice Cooper was there because he was part of a match between Jake the Snake and Honky Tonk Man.
Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah.
He comes out to the ring with Jake the Snake because Jake the Snake has a snake, and Alice Cooper has snakes in his show on his album covers. I think he's part snake, possibly.
But they met there and they became, they just started hanging out and like you said, Alice Cooper is apparently just a very nice and cool person.
What, you met him?
And,
he's very cool, very nice.
And John Carpenter was like, I'm making this movie, and if you want to be in it, I have a role that you could play. It's not a big role, but apparently this is the same way that he met Roddy Piper. Like John Carpenter just loves wrestling. He loves like all weird, cool things that like everybody like. I like wrestling, but I don't love it as much as you, Jason. But I do enjoy it.
I showed you like 3 hours of Bray Wyatt promos one night, and you were like, "This is amazing."
Yeah, I also went to all of those like amateur wrestling shows because I was like, "This is so
Wait till
fun."
you try and get in the ring with them.
Anyway,
no, we're not talking about that ever again. I hate that about you, Kaylin. I hate that almost as much as the other thing I hate about you.
Oh my god. I can't believe that I didn't know.
No, I got in.
You tried to get in the ring? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, you did get in. I'm surprised the wrestlers didn't fucking break your neck. Anyway.
Well.
I didn't like it.
I love this story, but I hate that you did this, okay? Full disclosure, I love you, Caitlin. You're my homie. You're my brother. But fuck, when you told me that the first time, as somebody that's worked in the wrestling business, I was like, dude, the one rule of the fan, there's like a fan wrestler unspoken relationship rule, and it's fans never get in the ring, and if you get in the ring, they have carte blanche to beat you.
That's why I
as hard as they can.
If I apologize to you, I'm
beat you off completely.
To the whole community, because I am really sorry that I did that.
No. This is like a South Park Wheel of Fortune thing. It's not. Yeah, that's not how it works. Anyway, that's how they met. That's why he's in the movie. Wrestling is fun, and Alice Cooper and John Carpenter both like it, and that's why Roddy Piper was in one of the best John Carpenter movies, is because John Carpenter loves wrestling.
He probably met Piper at WrestleMania 3 also.
I think that's true. I know that it was 3 where he met Alice Cooper, but it would make complete sense. It's around the same time. So,
well, WrestleMania 3 is 1986. And what year did They Live come out?
That came out after this movie.
Yeah.
So
Piper...
Yeah, and then again, we already mentioned that the some of the devices that were used in Alice Cooper shows were then recycled to be used in this movie, so they didn't have to create new devices and like safety test and like bring in like Tom Savini to be like, how are we going to make this work? It's like, no, we already have the device, just hook it up. which is so cool because that's like John Carpenter works best under restraints. I think when he's given a larger budget, if we were to go to like Ghosts of Mars or Escape from L.A., like those movies, he has a large budget and they're rough. They're not good. Like I'm glad that we are condensing this and not doing all of them because there are a few John Carpenter movies that are a little bit hard to swallow.
In those cases, that budget means bad 90s CGI.
Yes, it's also John Carpenter is like, I don't have to limit my imagination. He's just going for whatever and trusting the technology. There's even a little bit of it in the movie we're going to watch next week, where you're watching it and there's so many good practical gags that you're like, wow, I love this. And then every once in a while there's a CG thing that happens and you're like, ooh, uh-oh.
I do like
Why did you do that? And it was like in that era where they're like, it looks good enough, but now you're like, am I watching a shitty episode of like Goosebumps? You're like, everyone.
That happened to me with Fifth Element, widely regarded as one of the best sci-fi movies for a lot of people who lived through it coming out for the first time. Didn't care for it because the CGI was so bad. Same with The Cell. There's so much CGI in that movie, all the space shit. And then The Cell was another one. I think before Steve was on the show. Were you here for The Cell? Or was that just me and Caleb?
No, I was not, but I do own The Cell on Blu-ray. And I know what you're talking about. I do like The Cell. I do like The Cell quite a bit. Yeah, I do.
Oh my god, the CGI probably looks even worse.
I know, but I like The Cell because it's in like a person's mind and the whole concept is going inside of someone's mind. I think that's really cool because it's like imagine what you want and then go for it. And there is a lot of practical effects, and the makeup in that movie is wicked. There's a lot. I
like The Cell. I didn't like The Fifth Element as much as I should have. Kind of in a Big Trouble in Little China way, where I feel like I should have just watched The Fifth Element when it came out. I would regard it as a classic. Watching it in 2020 or 2021, whenever I did, I was like, there's a lot going on in this
also
movie.
like The Fifth Element.
Yeah, I figured you would.
So good.
I hate that character. I hate Chris Tucker in that movie. I hate
Chris Tucker in that movie? Oh my god. He's a gay icon in that movie.
I get that. I love that. I love that for him, and I love that for the gay community.
He's like a womanizing, like he's like a sexist asshole. He's gross in that movie.
But drag queens love to do his bits.
I think that if they were to remake The Fifth Element now, he would be like a pansexual. There would be like a new word for what he is, where he's just like I am always having sex at all times. Like his suit would be like a sex suit, where he's just
he would just have like a thing going.
But I also I like that Chris Tucker was willing to go for that type of weird role. But maybe that was his whole thing. He's like, I'll play weirdly, overly homosexual, but I have to have sex with women constantly, so people know I'm not. That could have been a weird toxic thing that I'm not overly familiar with. But again,
we'll find out later.
Like the style of that movie. I think it's really interesting, and it's playing off the Blade Runner tropes. But yes, there's a lot of bad CGI. But I love Gary. I like
Gary Oldman. Yeah, Gary Oldman's like, I'm a space redneck. That's genius. That's great. I don't hate The Fifth Element. I just should have liked it. I would have liked it. I know I liked it if I saw it in 1997 or whatever when it came. I would have loved it if I had watched it time appropriately. I didn't like it in 2020 or 2021 or whatever I watched it.
Wait, you had never seen it until 2021?
I had never seen it until I watched it.
Okay, no wonder you don't like it. Yeah. It's like watching Star Wars.
No, but that's just a bad movie.
Today,
no, that's
being
not
I hear this is the best Star Wars.
Honestly, as time goes on, episode 1 gets...
I fucking loved it. I thought it was the greatest movie ever made when I first saw that movie. I was
episode 1, it has some cool shit in it, man. I'm a Star Wars fan, and I think that as time goes on, people have appreciated... Jar Jar Binks aside, there's some cool stuff in episode 1.
Baddie.
I'm going to leave it at that.
Original, development.
Liam Neeson's wig.
Dude, the Battle of Fates. What's the fucking shit called with
The Duel of the Fates.
The Duel of the Fates is
Yeah.
one of the best cinematic moments ever.
It's great.
Ever. Like in the Star Wars pantheon.
I don't think they've really lived up to that lightsaber fight since that lightsaber
Never
fight.
again. All of the new trilogy has none of that.
It's dope.
The closest that the new trilogy gets is the battle in the woods, like the snow forest, and that cool battle in I think the second one where they're fighting. Maybe it's the third one where they're fighting on the waves on like a thing.
Yeah.
In waves. Those two fights.
They tried to do something crazy in the Last Jedi with like the guards or whatever, but that one felt a little bit too over choreographed. But again, the Maul versus Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fight on
and other things are happening. There's 3 things are happening at the same time during that fight too.
Yes.
The crazy climax.
Let me ask you guys this.
Underrated, overrated, and underrated at the same time.
Let me ask you this: watching the movie, and then
would you feel the same way if you watched it today and not when you were 7 years old? No, I was making an episode 1 joke. Go on, Kalen.
Was this movie? I don't think I was 7 when this movie. The girl gets blasted with the ooze or whatever it is, the evil juice, and then I got this weird like AIDS or like STD undertone or whatever. Like she infects another girl, and then there's like an interracial thing or whatever, right?
Yeah, I couldn't put my finger on it, Kaylin, and thank you, because much like Big Trouble, They Live in Big Trouble, I was like, cocaine. There's a lot of cocaine stuff going on here. I think this might be the AIDS scare a little bit, too.
It wasn't a scare. It was a fucking pandemic.
The AIDS
pandemic?
Oopsie.
Pandemic that's happening right now?
The AIDS oopsie? That's what we called it, right?
Yeah. No, hundreds of thousands of people died because the government did not want to treat
them. Or they were purposely...
The AIDS uh-oh.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know. But, yeah.
So back to the movie.
This is going to be Kalen's conspiracy corner, which has a nice ring to it.
KKK.
No. Oh no!
This is getting worse. This was going good, and then it's
your viewership.
Okay. Oh, one thing I noticed, or tell me if you felt the same way, when I forget his name, the guy, like the guy of African descent, right? When he,
I can't remember. He had like a name that was like a normal name, but they say it really quickly twice.
Yeah, I didn't catch it.
What is his name? It started with a C, I think.
Did you guys think he was fighting against the like evil ooze?
Yeah.
Like the girls. Actually, wait.
No, so okay.
So the 2 girls jump over whatever, right? And then one of them gives them mouth to mouth. And did that sound like someone hitting the bong when they made the sound effect?
when she was like blowing the she was kiss blowing it.
It sounded like somebody squeezing the last bit of juice out of a juice box to me. It didn't sound like a bong. I can do a good bong noise.
That's close.
I can do a better one if I have water.
Because it seemed like he was trying to fight it though. Like when they did
anyway.
him right, back and throat, it felt like he was trying to fight.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I later, but I was trying. The way I was looking at it is, it seemed like every single person that it affected had a different. They had a different reaction.
Okay,
What's his name? Jason Jackson or whatever his name is. The guy who, or not Peter Jackson. Peter Jason, I think his name is. The guy who's in They Live and he was in a couple of the other movies. That guy was like constantly crying the whole time, right? When he got hit by it. the first woman, she was like fully hypnotized.
I have.
She was just wandering
You
around.
got a theory?
And then
I have a theory about that.
The woman who was okay. Give me a second. The woman who was typing was like super hyper focused, and then he was like giggling and laughing, and like he.
So the reason why I thought of this is in the laughing and the crying bits come up for me because a lot of times demons will have a trait like that. And Beelzebub, who is like he's traditionally portrayed as like Lord of the Bugs, right?
Yeah.
That's what made me think
I believe is what his domain.
So that's what I'm wondering. Are they supposed to be not like the Four Horsemen, but are they supposed to be like representations of fallen angels? Could be. Because the laughing, crying, hyper focus, and like intense. The two girls almost felt like they were in tandem. Maybe they represented some sort of demon twins or demon pairing. They used seduction to take down Calder. I think.
I don't know if it was seduction so much as it was he was like they just like cornered him. Like they didn't like get overly sexy with him. Like they just kind of stared at him, and then one of them hit him in the head, and then they like barfed in his mouth by kissing him.
But it was the kiss, and when Susan is her name, and when she went in to get Mona Lisa or Lisa, he calls her Mona Lisa, but I don't know if that was a joke. But her name's Lisa, the girl who was like you could pass for Asian, which was a great Walter moment. She like almost essentially crawls on top of Lisa, and then Lisa almost says like I'm not into this. Like I don't know because the demon outbreak hadn't really happened yet, and then she just like pukes right in her face.
Yeah, she does another little pee stream in her mouth.
Yeah, and it's clearly like coming like from
squeeze it out the side.
They had Ecto Cooler. They had the Slimer Ecto Cooler from the Ghostbusters movie.
I mean, I there's no way for me to like. I think that you're onto something. I just don't know if they were specifically looking into demonology to be like, this is the demon of giggling, and this is the demon of sexy time, and this is the demon of I'm sad. But I do think that the idea is that they are being possessed by something, and whether it be that thing that's possessing them is pulling out traits from within them. This is like a thing that makes me want to go back and watch this again, so that I can sort of like hyper analyze each of those characters before they're possessed to see if there's something that is either heightened or completely diminished when they are taken over. Because
how about this?
You don't get a lot of time with each of those characters, and it'll be interesting to see if, when they are possessed, if there's something that's being like completely blown out of proportion or something that's being completely removed from them.
They're all representations of different elements of Satan. They're all like, Satan is a figure of many names, like Mephistopheles, Beelzebub, Satan, Lucifer, the devil, Morning Star.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, the things that they seem to be representing can also be representations of all human beings. Like, we have these different emotions within us, and they each seem to be clinging on to something very specific in their outward actions, right? Like, again, him giggling and then slitting his own throat, I think Kalen is right to a certain degree where he is trying to resist. Like, he tries to kill himself, he fails, and then he still isn't really attacking anybody. And he finds the mirror and gets obsessed with the mirror. And I think that's the first sort of like, they need the mirrors because he lives in like a mirror representation of Earth, which is like, again,
the like negative
this is
our
some
dimension.
sort of interdimensional
Like
travel.
we have a photo like a positive and then the negative, like the reverse, almost like the upside down from Stranger Things kind of thing.
The only thing that made me be like, oh, it is a demon, like, because I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna be like weird, like twisted versions of humans or human beings, but because what if it's like a literal mirror universe, like the upside down, like you said? but it's when the hand is coming out at the end, and it's like, oh, it's just like a
yeah.
Tim Curry claw from Legend.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God,
Red
it's so
and with
red.
yeah, it's like a classic. Like, ooh, I want to see what that devil looks like. Actually, like you're saying, like, what's the sequel to this movie?
That's what I mean. I want
Yeah.
I want to see part 2. Yeah, give me Prince of Darkness
Well,
2,
and
Queen
so that's
of
the
Darkness.
thing. So that brings, and I think we're starting to get close to our tippy top here. But so throughout the movie, the college students go to the church to figure out what's going on with this weird, canister down there, and they start having dreams of what looks like an old home video recording of the front of the church that they're at, with like a figure starting to come out of the doorway. As we go through the movie, we get bits and pieces of that message. And you were reading it earlier at the beginning of the pod there. This is not a dream, not a dream. We are using your brain's electrical system as a receiver. We are unable to transmit through conscious neurointerference. You are receiving this broadcast as a dream. We are transmitting from the year 1999. You are receiving this broadcast in order to alter the events you are seeing. Our technology has not developed a transmitter strong enough to reach your conscious state of awareness, but this is not a dream. You're seeing what is actually occurring, the purpose of causality violation. Makes up dream twice. Oh, right. So we see this little dream, not a dream thing throughout the movie as we go through. Now, who do you guys think that first figure was? We see this dark figure. It looks almost like a
Yeah.
and
Very good.
so when on a rewatch, part of me thought maybe it was the priest at the very beginning of the movie. So it's some sort of figure, right? And at first, like as I'm watching the movie, I didn't even really catch on what they were saying. Like on my very first watch, I was just like, "Oh, what the fuck's going on?" I heard something about broadcasting and whatever, blah blah blah. And I watched it 3 times now, and so yeah, it's a warning. So this movie is on related fucking time travel, like sci-fi shit, but it's also a bit of a horror, like suspense, and it's like a warning from the future. They talk about the tachyons and like moving faster than the speed of light. It's as if you're backwards in time. And so I guess maybe the scientists of the future are trying to prevent the apocalypse from occurring. They're sending it from 1999. And there's the whole, Y2K craze back in the day of like what's going to happen, right? But then we get to the end of the movie. They defeated what's her face, Catherine, chucked Holly into the mirror, into the other world, got trapped, and then the priest chucked the axe, broke the mirror, closed the doorway or whatever kind of thing, right? As a dream, it's the same message they got before, but then it's Catherine coming out the door. So what are your guys' interpretations on that?
I didn't really do a lot of interpreting. I took it at face value, and then essentially in 1999, in about 10 years, they developed the technology to. It's not even really time travel. It's just sending a message back with a tachyon beam. And they explain it in the movie that you can point a tachyon beam at a certain point at a certain time, and if you put a message into it, it can beam that message. And it just so happens that the only way that the message can be conveyed is if all these people are able to be in the same area as where the tachyon beam is shot. Kind of like how a star, like the stars that we see in the sky are light, that has traveled, millions of light years, that star could potentially not even exist anymore because the star could have burnt out a long time ago. But it's taken that time for the light to get here. It's the same kind of idea as the tachyon, from what I understand, from what I gathered, even in the context of this movie. Now, I want to point out that they had a thing on the TV that it's 1987 and they had just discovered supernovas. So I don't know if their science is really up to date compared to our science now. Um, but that's what I gleaned from the whole thing. And it's an interesting way to do it instead of just like, I've got a time machine. I'm not going to explain how it works, but I can time travel. I really like that. The science element of this whole movie was really cool. That's.
I think that my interpretation of the end, where she is replacing what I assume was meant to be the Prince of Darkness, like that is the titular Prince of Darkness at exiting the church after he has emerged from his case of goo. Also, that tube is amazing. That tube looks so great, and
it was very cool.
It's straight out of Ghostbusters, like you said, Jason. I really, really like it a lot. I love the chamber that it's in, and I think that it's not as complicated as that. Because he is dreaming. It's Brian. He's the one.
But he's not at the church
dreaming
anymore
this.
at that point. Like, I think he's back home.
I know, and that's why I'm like, maybe it isn't a part of the church's influence anymore. This is just him having a literal dream, and he's dreaming the same dream, but now he's seeing her emerging from the church, and he is feeling guilt, or he's seeing this woman who was essentially martyred herself, like she sacrificed herself for humanity, and he feels guilty that he wasn't able to save her. It might have been a more appropriate ending to end with Donald Pleasant's character dreaming this, because he's the one that smashes the mirror. They probably could have pulled her out of the mirror before he did that.
Yeah,
but he's
the
like,
last image of her.
like, throws the back. He didn't even give anybody a second to try and save her. He was like, "Okay, you took care of it. Now you're trapped in hell."
It's interesting you say that too, because by her going into that world, they didn't defeat the Prince of Darkness. They only gave him a sacrifice.
The door. They just closed the door that he was trying to come through.
And it's also the other side of.
They also closed the door for the entity that emerged from the tube that took over that woman who was barfing into the ceiling. She is now trapped, which I think means that the Prince of Darkness is trapped as well. I think that's supposed to be the Prince of Darkness, and then the King of Darkness is the thing that was trying to come through. But yeah, I think my interpretation is not necessarily that that's a new vision that the church is giving. It's just that he feels an immense amount of guilt, and in knowing that his, very brief love interest is now trapped in another dimension, and he had an opportunity for a split second to save her, but wasn't able to, and now he can only think of the fact that she potentially could emerge from the church just as the Prince of Darkness was meant to.
They also keep it extra ambiguous by having it be a dream within a dream, because he wakes up from the video recording to her laying in bed with the fucking messed up face. Yeah. Then he wakes up again, and then the last thing we see in the movie is him doing this to the mirror, and then it cuts to black. And there's no post-credits scene. Nowadays, they just give us a nice little post-credits scene to set up the next movie. There's none of that. Because it was 1987.
It's Winston entering the firehouse, and he's like, "I'm gonna make sure the Ghostbusters can return."
They just show an egg that's could be Adam Warlock that they never pay off in 30 movies. They just never pay it off. I'm still mad about that.
Maybe that'll be in Eternals too.
I think Adam Warlock is going to be a part of the Eternals universe or the Guardians universe. Spoilers for the game, but
should I watch the Eternals?
Sorry, go ahead.
Is that what you're saying?
Anyway, that was my answer to Kaylin's question. Is that I don't think that that dream is meant to signify anything more than the guilt that he's
I didn't think about that, and I think that's a good
point.
point. I think that's a very good point.
That's the ambiguity of the whole thing. It could be a message from alternate space and time, or he'd just be freaking out because he
and
witnessed his.
they answer that question. Not they don't answer it, but they like give you a speculative clue by saying like this message is being sent from the year 1999 by someone who figured out how to send a message into our dreams by tracking where the Earth had been at that period of time and sending it so quickly that it's going to be captured by us. Which is
that man
cool.
was Freddy Krueger, bitch.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, that's a pretty cool concept. I like that. It's like a different idea of how time travel can work. Rather than sending yourself through time, you can just send a message through time. Yeah, which is pretty cool. I think that John Carpenter had an idea after this for a time travel movie that he wanted to do, and I think that Back to the Future had come out recently, and they're like, "Fuck you, Carpenter! No, your last 3 movies have flopped hard."
Which I want to make Back to the Future with demons.
Yeah, but I would rather watch Prince of Darkness again than watch Back to the Future again. I don't know. Like Back to the Future is fine; it's a great movie, but I think I've burnt out on Back to the Future. I don't think I ever need to watch it again.
Back to the Future 2, I could watch infinitely. I love that movie so much, and it's because I did. That's like the reverse. That's like the opposite of The Fifth Element. I didn't watch Back to the Future 2 all the way through until I was like 17 or 18. I have seen the first Back to the.
Cowboy.
I hate the third movie, but I have only seen Back to the Future 3 like once, and I've never seen it as an adult. So I think that I might.
I mean, it's
enjoy that if I were to watch it.
Bulldog Tannen.
I mean, every version of Biff's gonna get covered in shit somehow.
Yeah, but he's also already covered in shit when he's introduced in that one. He's like a dirty cowboy. Yeah. Do we want to go for our final thoughts here, or do we want to keep going? Because I think I've said pretty much everything.
I covered everything. I think Kalen did a good job
Who's
there.
This god of plutonium? And like one thing said, like it was relating it to the cop who was rules the underworld.
I thought it was like.
Yeah, I thought that it was saying that plutonium won't save you, which is like this movie was made during the Cold War, so I assumed that was a reference to like we have figured out plutonium as a weapon, and no matter what, if we were to like launch nuclear weapons onto the devil when he crosses over, that still won't be able to save us because he's like immune to.
Satan would absorb nukes.
Yeah, we would shoot a nuke at Satan. He would absorb it, and then he'd be like, "Now I have nuclear vision."
No, I have nuclear Satan. That's exactly what I took from that as well.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I took from that. I was like, they were just saying that humans are the people who dropped nuclear bombs on each other to resolve wars. And Satan's not about that. Satan's gonna.
I am a little bit interested
make you his concubine.
What you discovered, though, Kalen, you were looking into like. What else did you discover other than Pluto?
Yeah, the god. What's the god? Well, yeah, tell me all about it.
I was reading about it. So they were linking it to like Pluto, the god Pluto or whatever, who rules. He's like a Roman god. And he rules like the underworld or land of the dead.
Okay. Interesting, because that ties into
kind of like
where Satan's
God as well,
from hell.
Like God, technically.
Land of the dead. Land of the dead, I think, is in between.
In like the Roman gods, it was more of like a pantheon of gods, so there wasn't like a one.
All?
Like there's like Greek gods and Roman gods. They're very similar. A lot of them. Like
you cross the river Styx to the land of the dead, and then from there you sort of just decided where you go, right?
It's
have
a lot to get into, but yeah, there are multiple gods, and I don't know if they were pennies. I think they were coppers, which were like big chunks of copper to cover your eyelids. But yeah, you had to use those to pay the ferryman to cross the river Styx, or else he would dump you in the river and you would just drift to wherever the hell.
You just be a ghost, basically.
Anyway, well, I guess that's interesting, but yeah, I thought there would be a little bit more to that. But yeah, no, I think that me and Jason had the same interpretation, which is not necessarily the correct interpretation, but the fact that, you know, like humanity discovered plutonium, and at that time when this movie was made, we're literally like pointing nukes at each other, being like, "You make the first move." No, you make the first move. Nobody
You'll
is
make
going
first
to press
move.
button until we figure out who is going to
There's
die.
something similar happening right now with fucking Russia and the Ukraine. So if the world's nuked tomorrow morning, well, at least we got this out there for poor people to watch.
I'm gonna tell you, I have a recurring dream where the sky is ripped open with like a bright light, and then it's just like torn into shreds. So maybe I'm having a Prince of Darkness dream over and over again.
From 10 years from now, that tracks, man. I could see the 10 years. We had a pandemic. We're into year 3 of this panini.
Maybe beneath the parking garage of my apartment building, there's a giant vat of spinning green ooze that I need to go investigate. I'll just keep my mouth closed when I go near it, though.
Until they explained what it was, I just was like, I kept referring it to in my notes as the green swirl.
It looks great, man. It looks so cool. But
I was like, there's no way that's
mercury with like green dye or something, and it's like, because it looks metallic-y almost, right? And it just looks very satisfying the way it's like spinning.
I kind of when you're like when I was watching it, the computer screens also kind of mirrored what the vat was doing, like just that green text going across like the background kind of thing.
Oh, interesting. See, this is like why I want to rewatch it again, because like there's like a lot of, like I didn't even notice that, and like that's something that I want to go back and like fine tooth comb it a little bit, because like I feel like I really liked it, but I didn't absorb it 100% fully the way it's meant to be, and I think that there's things that I probably missed, and I would like to go back and watch it again. Maybe I'll watch it again right after this, and then next week I'll talk about Prince of Darkness the whole time instead of the movie we're meant to talk about.
I want to see this movie in theaters. I think this movie is meant to be watched with like the lights down, no distractions, big screen.
Right.
I know I had the power to do that, but hey, we live in tumultuous times. We got busy lives. Okay, we gotta fit these movies in where we can.
That's true.
That note,
I guess like again, I've been talking about the tank a lot, but I just want to mention that the effects were once again great. Like John Carpenter always has amazing effects in his movies up until the 90s. We'll see next week. There's a couple of things that are not practical and they're not great. And that's kind of, I think, John Carpenter's downfall, was he's like, I'll let the VFX people figure this out.
I think everyone, even today, versus CGI has gotten really good, but even today, I think most, especially cinephiles, love practical effects over CGI, because CGI always dates itself. It always dates itself. If you watch a movie from even 2010, when in 2010 we were like, oh shit, they can do anything now. Oh my god. You still go back and watch a movie from 2010 and you're like, well, that sucks, and that's okay, but that's terrible. And the same thing happens when you watch movies from the 80s and 90s. In the 80s specifically, when they jam some CGI in there, and it's new CGI where they can do like a cube, and that cube cost $1 million to render.
Yeah, it's getting to a point now though where weirdly people are not even realizing when things are real.
Right.
Which is like, if you watch Mad Max Fury Road, the majority of the effects in that movie are real, but there are certain things that aren't here and there, but you can't even really tell what is real and what isn't. Obviously, the giant sand cloud, you're like, that's not real. They didn't figure out how to do that. But,
spoilers.
Wait,
sorry.
A slight point. They just released a teaser trailer for the new Lord of the Rings show that's coming out on Prime, and the entirety of this trailer is just like molten metal being poured into a forge of the words Lord of the Rings, and they released it, and it looks beautiful, but your brain immediately is like, okay, a full CGI trailer, okay, what the fuck? And then they released another video like a few days later, because everyone was like, well, we didn't see anything from the show. And they're like, well, we spent a lot of time making this. And then they showed that it was like literally people pouring molten metal, and like all the steam and smoke is real, burning into wood. And everyone was like, holy fuck, you did that for real? Everyone just assumed it was CGI. And I think they had anticipated that. And they're like, but it's not CGI. We literally poured all of this. It wasn't CGI. They did all, and they showed like a making of the trailer. And it's like people's brains just automatically assume things are CGI now, even when they look so good, that because they are actually real, people think that it's CGI, which is like terrible news for humanity. Like,
to that same note, the spoilers for Ghostbusters Afterlife, but that Egon fucking shit at the end looked fine and looked good now, but 3 years from now, 5 years from now, it's going to look so bad. And I'm worried that they use this new technology for Disney shows, especially I think they use it for The Witcher as well. But they use this like dome green screen now when they do like the Star Wars shows.
Yeah.
That they're able to just project whatever they want. And the CGI is so good, and they put so much money into that these backgrounds look amazing. And I'm worried that we're going to get to a point where we're going to go back and look at Mandalorian or look at Boba Fett and be like, that looks bad. I think it's going to take a decade.
In that show, in those shows, that's more for the actors' benefit and not necessarily. And it gives reference to the animators, because they still animate over top of all that. It's not like they're just in a room and they shoot it and then they're good to go. They have to go in and make it make sense, because even when you move a camera in that environment, it's not going to look correct. So like they still have real sand dunes when they're climbing it. They just have this like really because it gives you natural light effects as well, right? Because they're using the light from these massive LED screens to make sure the lighting is correct. I know what you're saying, but I think that like that isn't. I think that's more for the actors' benefit and for the animators' benefit in terms of lighting and just being able to track where things are moved.
Instead of having to talk to a tennis ball on top of it.
Or to imagine that you're going down a trench of lava. Now you're sitting in a boat where like the lava is being projected by all these screens around you, and you don't have to like pretend as an actor to be like, holy fuck, we're in a lava tunnel. It's like, no, we're kind of really in a lava tunnel here. It's like being on like a ride at Universal Studios.
Well, there's that bit in one of the episodes of Mandalorian where they're going down like a river. And then they come out to like a stormtrooper battle. I thought that was really well done and really cool. It's Baby Yoda just killing it.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we all share the same concerns about CGI, but I think that there are people that still consider practical effects to be worthwhile, sorry. And
worthwhile.
It's worthwhile. Let's get fucking nuts with it. And I think that bringing it back to the Star Wars shows, they are doing a lot of practical effects again, and because they know that people prefer it. Not just
the costumes specifically look amazing.
Yeah, remember in episode 3 when all of the clones were CG and like Tamora Morrison's head was like floating on a clone body, and he's like, I found your lightsabers, Now he's like, finally I get to wear a real Mandalorian costume.
I've never been.
Instead of just being in like a sock. But yeah, no, it's great. Like they're making real robots, they're making real masks and stuff. They'll do CGIs for a character, but the whole face is a rubber mask that someone's wearing, and it's because they know that not only is it the filmmakers that prefer it, but people watching know the difference between CGI and a real rubber mask, and they want to see the rubber mask. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting like emotional about this.
Let's wrap. We've been talking about CGI for 10 minutes. Let's take her home there, Cage.
Right, let's see. So, final thoughts on the movie that we're talking about this week, Prince of Darkness, by yours truly, John Carpenter. Let's go.
You're John Carpenter?
Yeah, hold on. Are you John Carpenter?
You said yours truly.
That means you are John Carpenter.
By yours truly, Jason Phillips.
Um,
I think you just blew Caitlin's mind a little.
That's okay.
I've been using that wrong for 30 years.
Yeah, hold on. That's what that means. I've been signing all of my letters to other people about them with that.
Yours truly.
And I just
Dear
wanna
yours
say
truly.
that I love yours truly.
oh man, that did blow my mind. Oh, that's funny. Oh god, I can't breathe. Okay, give me a second. Okay. What we said earlier, but proper. Let's go. We'll start Steve with you, and then Jason, and then myself.
Okay. I enjoyed this movie much more than I did the first time I saw it. I think I've said multiple times throughout that I would like to watch this movie again to kind of fully relish in the stuff that I may have missed, hyper-analyze the things that I know I didn't fully absorb properly, and just kind of appreciate everything a little bit more, because there is a lot going on. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of things that happen to those characters. And even though there's like this big belly in the middle that lulls real hard, all the stuff that happens in that belly is like, it is like digestion.
Is it because of my slow cooker comment at the beginning?
It's like all of the thoughts that are happening within the first kind of like moments of the movie, because you're a little bit confused as to what's going on. And then it all kind of sags and it sits there for a minute, and you get a lot of back and forth between Donald Pleasence and Victor Wong talking about science, philosophy, religion. The moment where Victor Wong is like, he has the dream, and then Donald Pleasence is like, did you have a dream? Tell me about your dream. And he's like, my dreams are my own, and I'm allowed to think about whatever I want in my dreams, and you can't tell me that I'm wrong about it. And you're like, oh my God, this is
Imagine
really
the
deep
dreams
and good.
that they didn't.
And then it, you know, it just kind of. Well, I think that's the point, is that he's like, I don't want to. Anyway, yes. And then it all just kind of like explodes from that moment. You get a lot of like soft kills here and there, but you know it's building to something, and it builds and it explodes real quickly. And the pacing is maybe a little bit unbalanced, but I didn't mind. I can think of like a lot of movies where this type of pacing would turn me off to the point that I want to turn the movie off. But I think that it was deserved. I enjoyed it, but I think I will enjoy it the more I watch it. And I think that this being one of those John Carpenter movies I probably never would have watched again had we not decided to do it. It's a Donald Pleasence surprise. I am happy we did it, because it's interesting and it's strange, and I like the melding of science and religion, and it's like, it's a fun concept, and I like that John Carpenter essentially made a time travel movie without making a time travel movie. Also, like, weighted with these other heavy concepts, but it's not incomprehensible and it's not bad. It's good. I'm gonna give this movie
whatever you
what's
want.
our rating system again? I always forget.
Your rating system is your own.
Okay, I'm gonna give this movie an 84% out of a 100%.
Shit. Wow.
84% good, which means it passes. Not amazing pass, but like
It passes in university.
it passes in university. And I hope that students will study this movie for years to come in the University of Steve. I like it. I like this movie quite a bit. And as I said, this is one of the few John Carpenter movies that was set up for a sequel at the end. He never intends to make a sequel, but this is one that I would actually like to see a sequel to, like, weirdly enough. It shouldn't be done. I don't want it to be done. If it's ever done, don't blame me. But I'd like to see what happens in that demon world. And I will pass it on to Jason, I suppose.
So I'm going to disappoint you guys. I didn't like this movie. I did not like this movie that much. I liked talking about it a lot, and I think that I'm going to stick to my original rating because, my integrity. But the things that I didn't like about this movie kind of outweighed the cool stuff for me. The lulls in this movie were like these long exposition dumps of science that were contextually hard to follow. I feel like if I was a physicist or heavily religious, either one of those things, I might have been able to, submerge myself in it a little bit better. I had a lot more fun theorizing, talking about it. But all of what Steve said is completely valid. It is a very fun movie. It is worth rewatching, and I think I think rewatching the movie in a couple years, I might change my tune a bit. But this viewing, I didn't really get much out of it aside from picking it apart. And I know that's unfortunate, but when you review movies, you have to, like it's right in the title, you have to review the movie. And the things I did enjoy were theory crafting. I really enjoyed Walter's character and how cheese it was. But on the inverse, that's something I didn't like about the movie. I didn't like how there was all this really good, serious acting that was, objectively good acting. And then Walter, who is a good actor, as seen in Big Trouble in Little China, like he's good in that movie because it's a different kind of role. Him taking that energy to this movie kind of brought it down for me and kind of made me bummed out that pick a lane movie is kind of what I kept sort of saying to myself, and I know that's probably unfair. But like I said,
I think that's completely valid and fair.
And that's why I didn't like it. I think that I do like genre bending movies. I do like when you take a lot of ideas and jam them in. I just think this had too much for I like a movie that's an hour and 40 minutes. Gotta say, nowadays every movie has to be over 2 hours, 2 hours and a half. Fucking Eternals was like 2 hours and 45 minutes for no reason, no good goddamn reason. Too long.
I feel like I'm still watching that movie. And I'm
still watching because you're thinking about it. That's why you're still watching it. But at the end of the day, I didn't like it while I was watching it, but I loved talking about it. But unfortunately, that's going to reflect in my final number review, where Steve gave it a fucking 84%. I rated mine and then looked at Rotten Tomatoes and looked at Metacritic, and it was pretty much on par with them. It's around the 60% level there. I give it a 2.7 out of 5, which I think is fair, because if we didn't go into it for an hour and a half and really pull it apart, and if we did like 30 minutes, if we did a quick 30-minute podcast on this, we wouldn't have gotten the enjoyment out of it that we got. We would have probably it's a little bit different for you guys because you watched it multiple times. Both of you have seen it multiple times now. But for me, watching it once, I didn't get a lot out of it. The good stuff was obviously good, and the bad stuff was glaringly horrible. But I think I gave it a fair rating. That's my final thoughts. Also, I really want to hit home how the acting between the individual actors was so out of whack. Some people were like legitimately good actors, and some actors were just like, what are you doing? How did you get onto the screen?
Yeah. I think that your rating is fair, and I think that, a movie for Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes, it gets a score that it has because there are going to be people that rate it a 2, rate it a 1, rate it a 0, people that rate it 100, people that rate it a 90, people that rate it 85.
A mean average does that.
Because you could have just sit here and shit on the movie the entire time, but you did not.
No.
You seemed to enjoy talking about it and liked a lot about it, which means that, it was good enough that you enjoyed the little nuggets of good in it. I can't sit here and say anything really bad about the movie other than it's a
a movie that has a lot of identity crisis about what it wants to be, and a lot of the acting was subpar.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna move my rating up. I make my rating pretty solid and concrete as soon as I finish the movie, because then I go online, and I don't want the internet to like change that, and I don't like to put my rating at the end of our discussion, because I probably would have given it, just because of almost like a peer pressure kind of way, I would have given it like a 3.5. But
you've
start watching a movie
before based on.
I have. I'm trying to keep my integrity though. I also, when I watch a movie, I start it at a 5. Every movie I start is at a 5, and by 20 minutes into the
deducting points as you go. Oh my
yes.
God, you're like
by the time I got 25 minutes into this movie, I was already at a 3, and when I hit 3, I was like, I can't go any lower, and then I found reasons to go lower.
Oh my God,
so,
I was at a 100%, and then it went down a little bit, and went back up to 110% as soon as I saw a tank full of green ooze. I was like, oh, a tank of ooze.
We were very positive in this review for this movie.
Yeah.
But Kayla,
I also have to go to the bathroom really badly.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna take.
So Kayla, take us home.
I go to the bathroom. No, I'm just joking. Well, I'm not joking. Okay, I'm making it worse. Okay, so I watched this movie for the first time, and Jason, I'm in the same kind of camp as you. I was like, okay, like I see what he's doing with certain things. I do see what you're saying about the identity crisis. He's on a few little things, but doesn't actually commit to any one thing, kind of. And so like that was my first view. But then because like I was gonna be hosting and shit, I gave it another watch to like pick up on, like just to kind of go through and nit at it. And there's definitely a lot of things to like about it. As I mentioned earlier, I compare it to like a slow cooker. Like I'm watching it, and it kind of feels like it's the preview of the movie until like an hour in, and all of a sudden like the movie starts or whatever, right? It was just the pacing, as you said, Steve, was like, it was bearable, but it was kind of weird. But I did enjoy it, and I'm glad that you guys, we did it or whatever. I'm excited for next week because that's going to be a new one for me also. And again, so for my rating, I'm going abstract. I really got to pee. It's a slow cooked meal versus the worst fast food you could get. That's what it is. And on that note,
perfect.
I forget the order. Do we do the catch and then on behalf of, or on behalf of and then the catch?
On behalf of and then the catch.
Jason and Steve, I'm Kellen.
For Kayla and Steve, I'm Jason, and for Steve, who's gone to the bathroom, I'm also Jason, and that's Kaylen.
Here we go. I gotta pee.
I didn't go to the bathroom. That was the
just say you're for us. For Kaylen and for Jason, I'm Steven. Oh my God! See this one? Oh, I got it. Oh shit! I still got it. Oh no! What?
Don't forget.
Oh God! I gotta bring it with. No, it's like, how do I stop it?
This is not.